Welcome, folks, to the Construction Cowboy Show, and thanks to our sponsor, Merchant Commodities, wholesale supplier of building materials nationwide. We've got a great show today, and one of my dear friends and tremendous professional in the industry. Special guest is Mr. Bill Caton. He's founder of Caton Commercial Real Estate Group, located in Naperville, Illinois, and with a background of service industry spans more than 40 years. So Bill specializes in commercial development, farmland sales, 1031 exchanges, and commercial industrial leasing and sales. He's past president of the board member of the Northern Illinois Commercial Association of Realtors, and is on the NICAR board of directors and charter chairman of the NICAR's Commercial Global Business Council. Bill is part of the Illinois Realtors, where he has served as chairman of the Commercial Committee and IR Global Committee, and a member of the Global Working Group and Public Policy and Government Affairs Member Involvement Group, and a major investor in the Realtors Political Involvement Committee and a Commercial Committee member of the NRA. Bill will apply his experience today on the topic of construction in single-family homes and multifamily development projects, and how construction owners and builders and GCs, framers and subs, can benefit from this information, including other followers and other real estate agents. Glad to have you on, Bill, and tell the listeners and our followers a little bit more about you and your background and your business.
Well, first, thank you, Jeff, for having me and for that great introduction. And Mr. Williams has said, Kay is in Naperville, Illinois. We have about 25 agents that do only commercial work. We have experts in just about every asset class that's there, which affords me an expert to help me with any issues that I have in the asset classes. In addition to our brokerage, we have a property management company that now has about close to 1.5, 1.7 million square feet, mostly in residential or in retail and office. In addition to our location in Naperville, Illinois, we do business throughout the United States and also have international clients. I attend MIPIM, which is the largest commercial venue in Europe and France, every March, and we have several international clients and investors that work with us. Personally, I married my bride 56 years ago this weekend, so we had a great weekend celebration. I have 2 children. Both of them are my partners in business. My daughter now has taken away one of my huge hats, okay, and she is now the CEO and managing broker of our company. And our son is a developer and an investment broker alongside of me that gives me great counsel. Personally, I like hunting and traveling the United States in our RV.
Bill, I tell you what, you've got a well-balanced life, I can say that, and to celebrate that anniversary for those many years, I can say one thing, that somebody's had to get along pretty good to get along that far, so congratulations.
You're welcome, and it goes very, very fast.
Well, I know personally you've got a great family. I've met them all, and it's just a delight. And your wife, she's just a jewel. So I can add to that also. So let's start and begin with a question. I've got a series of questions throughout, but I'm going to mainly ask the question and let you kind of elaborate on it. But in the construction, again, you being commercial real estate and starting off for the many years you've been in the business, but more so, I'm more interested in your experience in development and the things you've had to go through and the things that you know and experience that can share with the followers. And a lot of this kind of information applies across any business that anyone's listening to. It doesn't have to be just construction, but again, this show's kind of geared that way, but you'll pick up from Bill some great golden nuggets. And so Bill, First question is, what construction issues tend to derail deals the latest in the progress or your progress? In other words, what do you see that is kind of an average derailment deal, in a lot of these kind of things?
Yes, I've experienced a lot of these, not only in our own projects, but also clients of ours over the last 42 years that we've been doing this. Late discoveries are always the hiccup, okay? Specifically, utility capacity issues, electric, gas, water, okay, other infrastructural things that come on. And of course, the jurisdictional surprises. Working with cities, fire marshals, it's stormwater, revised codes. Codes are constantly being changed, or new people come into the government, okay, or their office, and they apply the restrictions differently. Permits, okay, getting your permits sequencing down between your civil engineer, your building, and your trading permits. These are always issues. Working with landlords or working with investors that are vague and do not have specific definitions of what they want to get done. And of course, those things that plague every construction project, and that's change orders. When do they come? How often do they come? And more importantly, who handles them? Okay, and gets them done. So those are just some of the ones that I find that are, give you heartburn whenever you're doing your projects.
In relation to a closing of a property, or in other words, at what stage do you usually kind of try to come into these kind of projects? And I know on your own that's from start to finish, but on other projects that you're brought in on, how do you try to facilitate those pain points and the closing timelines and the commissions and all that kind of thing as part of that derailment strategy?
Yeah, great question. I view my position in any project, whether I'm part of the project or whether I'm just a broker, as a communication network, okay? I got to make sure that everybody along the line is communicating and responsive to one another in their timelines. So it's clear communication, expectations that need to be met, and if they're not, then it's a matter of going back and reinforcing the issue with that particular person.
Okay. So moving on to another question. When you're underwriting a deal, what assumptions do you have to make to build out, or the renovation costs, but more so just assumptions that you have to assume or plan for?
Well, whenever you're working with any project, the budget is the issue, okay? And you need to be very conservative when you're doing it. And the market that we're in today, with all kind of uncertainty, assuming escalations, okay, in your pricing is a must. Pricing is not static. You need to be constantly updating it if there's any delays in your timeline, going out and getting new bids, and competitively looking at those bids. Assumptions also include longer lead times, especially for MAPs and specialty equipment. During the supply chain, we know all of us had problems with HVACs or electrical conduit boxes. Knowing the market and predicting those things. Garage doors, okay, in some of our industrial projects, we had a hard time getting those in others. Older buildings that we work on, you always can assume that there's going to be hidden conditions, okay? There's going to be a roof issue you didn't see, or electrical spies. We have a project in Homewood where we were beating the winter this fall. We wanted to get our asphalt in and our concrete work done before it turned cold. And in that rush, we didn't check the parking lights, okay? And some of the poles, the electric, okay, was not connected anymore, or was disconnected. So now in the spring, we're going to have to tear up asphalt and repair that. So having those, foresights ahead of time. FF&E and soft costs, okay, having owners contingencies. The new buyers and first-time buyers almost always underestimate the cost of the FF&E and the soft costs. Of course, value engineering is assumed, but it's not something that you can always count on to close a gap in your budget.
So with contractors and owners, it's kind of a sidebar question, but what are the conversations with many different developers and builders and GCs and things? What are a couple of the red flags in a conversation that always have a tendency to repeat itself and jump out at you that cause you to take a step back and say, is this something I really want to get involved in? And I know a lot of developers and followers and people that are listening, again, they're all running their business. They're trying to figure out, how so many times we want to engage in everything that we get and we want to get so excited about it and move forward in it. But sometimes it's the hidden secrets behind it, and they're just not a good deal. And they can just drag you out and drain you. And so I guess my point to that is you've got many years of experience of that. And do you have any points or tips that can kind of, help guide that along? So two-part little question. One, what are the red marks, the red zones, the red flashing lights? And then secondly, what's a couple points to help avoid that?
Well, I think anybody that's in this industry has kind of understood the fact that the best deal that you've ever done is sometimes the deal that you don't do. And that is apparent early on if we have high expectations from one person that we know can't be met, or the deal looks, a little bit too thin, or any of those inconsistencies between the parties that you're dealing with, because a successful deal requires the communication. When it comes down to friction in things that we can't control, such as electrical and power upgrades, we mentioned that earlier in the supply chain, okay? Sizing of HVAC and codes changing in the areas. If you work from city to city, you start learning which cities have peculiarities or things that they won't give on and make it difficult. They've got reputations. Investor confidence, okay? Investors got to be confident in their numbers and in their, not only their numbers, but also in their capital stack. And if you control all this and make this work smoothly, this adds to your broker's credibility in the project. And the broker is kind of like the wedding planner. He may not produce the flowers, but he may better make sure that they're there and blooming at the right time.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So next question is, which trades or scopes cause the most friction between the buyers, sellers, and tenants? And I know that's a broad perspective, but again, it does affect all the folks, the buyers, the sellers, the tenants in the transaction. And it depends upon if it's a multifamily or single family. And so I know those are a lot of variables in that. But again, what causes the most friction between those parties and who you're on the construction side? Or I should say versus the construction side.
Yeah. Friction in any project is what you're trying to eliminate, but you know that's always going to be there. The civil work, okay, that you work on. We've got a project now where the original bids on the detention area were around $500,000, right? And that was just creating that. But this is along an interstate, and then we found out last minute that we have to tie into their stormwater system. And because of that increased underground work, the project is almost $900,000, so almost doubled because of that. Fire protection, safety, life safety equipment, all of this adds. Sprinkler systems. Some of the areas that we're in, they're now requiring sprinkler systems in any building, almost 5,000 square feet and up, and they may change that depending upon the use inside the building. So those are some of the areas. Specialty equipment, that needed for whatever a veterinarian practice that we're dealing with right now is having difficulty. So volatile pricing and long lead times to those things. Inconsistency between the landlord, tenant, and the CE assumptions. When that occurs, that's your first red flag that this might not be a project that is going to, actually get completed.
Do you kind of switch a little bit? Do you find the bigger developers and bigger GCs are easier to work with than smaller operations, or say an individual owner developer? What do you find is easier? I say that easier is most of the time bigger is more demanding, but more proficient, and yet I find a little bit of both. From your experience, again, my experience doesn't matter as yours.
Yeah. So, great question in that I find it both ways. In other words, I have smaller construction developers that I love to work with because they're very professional, they're very consistent. Okay, they've got great connections to their subs. One of my best friends, Rick, is a industrial builder. I would do any project for him because he has control and command of his subs. He pays his subs right away whenever they're done with the work, whether he's got this draw or not. And so he gets them to his projects before they go anywhere else. At the same time, I have large companies that we work with that have multiple layers of responsibility, and it's difficult sometimes to get through those layers. And then others, because they have a great system of checks and balances, I can pretty much turn the project over and know that it's going to get done. It all is dependent upon the culture of the contractor. And if they have the right culture and they have the success ratio, okay, then those are the ones that more likely I'm going to work with that are going to get the project done.
Well, I know that you're very involved in every project you get involved in personally, whether it be for a client or your own project. But you also have a fantastic staff and a group of people there at the company. And I know that, I don't know how many people you have at your office. I see the ones that are mainly there, but I know you've got a great number of people that help you in a lot of different ways. And you've got your own appraisal company and some of the other things you have, and the support Caton Commercial. And so I know there's great value there working with you. From a, often in construction timelines impact lease negotiations or tenant concessions. Sometimes, again, that comes back to, and there's always that split between when development gets done and finished, and then those units are being leased and rented. And can you speak to that just a little bit, and how that impacts that process?
It's very impactful, especially in the medical area and veterinarian clinics, which we're working with now, industrial, and the QSRs, okay, the national tenants, okay, that are coming through. They have very specific formulas, okay, that have to be met, and delays often.
Excuse me, can you...
Quick QSRs are quick service restaurants, your coffee shops, your ice cream places.
I just want to clarify that for the followers.
Drive-up windows, they're 1,500, 2,000 square feet, or even smaller than that, okay? But they're usually on maybe a half acre to an acre of land. Delays in this area cause rent abatements to occur, or you have to increase your TI allowances, and phased, or sometimes the national tenants will have fines written into their agreements that if you don't deliver on certain dates. Tenants now negotiate very aggressively on their delivery dates, or get more aggressive. We're working with a national daycare right now, and they will only take occupancy in July. All right. Now, we had one particular case where that was not possible because of governmental problems. Then the only other time they will accept it is in November, and that's because of the registration timelines. Construction can be slowed down because of credit approvals. A lot of capital stack issues today with the uncertainty in the market. Deals fall apart and timelines aren't aligned whenever the tenant's operations can't be delivered, and you can't deliver the space in the time that they want. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of hand-holding, okay, and of each project to get it done on time.
Okay. Outstanding. Bill, it's just full of information and knowledge and experience. And if anybody's doing a project of any kind, they should reach out to you and get a hold of you. So what questions do sophisticated investors ask you about construction that newer buyers don't?
Yes. So they want to know things like what items are most likely to exceed the budget and why, what are you going to, what contingencies you're going to do for that? Where have we seen inspectors or slow down the project recently? What areas, what cities, what towns are hard to work with? We experienced that in our veterinarian clinic. We were supposed to get the CO in July, and we just received it here in December because of inspection problems and changing of personnel. Personnel with at different levels that had different expectations. They want to know what's realistic. They don't want optimism. They want to know delivery times specifically and what's going to impede that or stunt that down. What items should we stress test? Another project, 5 acres. The project is, it's a good project, but it's going to have to come off solidly in order to perform. So we need to know what the market is like in that area because it's a little bit green. So that requires, some additional work. Who's controlling the GC and who's handling the change orders and how's that going to get handled? And finally, the risk factors. What are the risks that we can retain and what are risks that we can transfer by contract to our subs or other liabilities that we can get rid of? So what are our risks and how do we limit them in the project, okay? Because they're coming up. Every project has its problems, okay? If it didn't, we wouldn't be in this business because somebody else would be able to take care of it for us.
Well, it's a crazy dance dealing with all the different elements of a project, and construction is one of the hardest businesses to manage from every aspect. And so I don't think there's anything that you haven't touched. But so we'll kind of start to wrap up here a little bit, getting closer to the end of our time, and I want to give a little bit of time for you to share some information about the company yet and for his contact. But if you could eliminate one construction-related unknown from every deal, what would that be, Bill? That's a loaded
Confusion,
question from a cowboy.
Yeah, it is. True clarity, okay? On timing and cost of projects, okay?
Transparency.
No estimates, yes. No estimates, okay? Everything has to be current bids, okay, and upgraded. Specifically, utility delivery. In our area, dealing with, Commonwealth Edison, IDOT, those are unknowns out of your control. Final permit conditions, what's it like to get your CO in that area? And real GC, how much control does the GC have over his subs? How can he get them there when they need to be at the project and timely? All of this protects your closing, your lease economics, your investor confidence, and finally your broker credibility.
Yeah, I've got a couple other shows that I've done personally and with others that address that same question and that same concern about GCs being able to manage their crews and their subs and I find that getting them on time and communication is a big issue also with that. So yeah, absolutely.
Is your labor force in your market?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as you well know, it's changed over the years, right? So any last thoughts you'd like to share with our followers?
Yes, I would say that construction is no longer a downstream issue. It's a front-end underwriting variable. You need to know up front, okay, what things are coming at you. The best deals today are structured around certainty and not optimism, and not a hope and a prayer. Brokers who understand construction risk create better outcomes for everybody. Alignment saves time, money, and relationships later. Strong deals don't fail because of pricing. They fail on execution and the execution of risks. Construction Insights is now a competitive advantage. I mentioned my friend Rick, okay, who is an industrial broker. That's how he sets himself apart in the market. The goal isn't perfection. It's predictability. Everybody likes predictability. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. Do you want to share a website or an email or a phone number while you're online here, so somebody, if they want to get in touch with you?
Yes, you can certainly just Google Caton Commercial Real Estate Group. We're out of Naperville, Illinois. And if you want to get a hold of me personally, my best number is my cell, which is 815-370-1236. So again, I appreciate the opportunity, Jeff, for having me on. And I hope everybody has a very profitable and productive 2026.
Bill, thanks for being on the show. Again, this is Caton Commercial Real Estate Group and being on the Construction Cowboy Show. And happy trails, folks, to our followers until we meet again. So bye for now.